And we're going. What's up, Wraeclast? It's Wabasha here with Hegemony.
What's up, guys?
And Nugi. How you doing, Nugi and Hege?
What's up?
I'm doing great. Having a lot of fun in the Ascendancy.
Yeah. Me too. I know Nugi is. Nugi, you ripped today, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Damn shame. What a
little ISP boss.
Yeah. So, and today in What's Up, Wraeclast, usually when we write out what we're going to talk about, we have we have a couple of topics, but there's just so many good things about Path of Exile Ascendancy right now that I think we all kind of just want to talk about a bunch of things. But there's also plenty of stuff that we want to see improved, like where the hell is where are the leaderboards? Come on. We want the damn leaderboards for the labyrinth. So there's just a lot of things that we're going to talk about. So we're just going to kind of, just throw it at the wall, see where it goes. So I'll go ahead and kick off. As I was just saying, where are the leaderboards? I mean, I want a reason to actually play the labyrinth competitively, but there's no reason right now. You talked about this with Moors the past couple of days, and if you guys don't know, on Moors' YouTube channel, which I'll put a link in the description, and you could find it elsewhere if you just search for him. He has a lot of really good conversations with a lot of different people on his YouTube, so you guys should check that out. But yeah, there's not a lot of reason to do the labyrinth right now outside, especially once you get your helm enchant. So, what do you think, Nugi?
Yeah, it was kind of I was kind of worried in the alpha that there wouldn't be a way to scale up the lab, and I think that's the main issue. Because there's the data mine stuff that there is supposedly, but nobody knows if there's actually a way to unlock it. But the 75 versions, the people with data mine, and if those were in play, and the lab would be a lot more difficult. If it was a level 75 zone, it would be that you could somehow unlock. That would be really nice for some next tier enchants. So you could hope that you could run the lab a few times, maybe do some cool stuff with that, and then unlock the next tier lab, and you could run that, and then you have to go through it again and kind of just do that kind of thing, a little bit like in Siri.
Yeah, a little bit about Oba's Cursed Trove, where the difficulty
gets
exactly
harder. Yeah, it gets harder and harder. That's actually a good idea to implement something like that. Maybe there's a time limit. If you can't beat the time limit, the thing stops, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things they could do, and they have the technology, so to speak. It's just about implementing it. Because right now it does seem a little bit boring to run it over and over again only for the enchant. There are some really good drops in there though. There's definitely some stuff to farm, but the lab itself becomes really really easy once you get it down. So I think that's a little bit discouraging.
Yeah, it's actually because you and I have been playing hardcore. Hege usually plays hardcore, but this time around he's actually been playing standard. So he kind of definitely has a different viewpoint on it, I think, now because of that. So what do you think, Hege?
Well, my viewpoint,
it's a little different.
It's a little different, but I still play the same way, and
right.
I just do a lot of riskier things that I shouldn't be doing, but just for the fun of it, because I can. But I found the lab. I really like it. I enjoy it. I like the fact that I, as a level 92 character, I can still die in a normal lab from the traps, because they do scale. The monsters are really easy, and I noticed that for the most part, GGG has selected a lot of slow monsters, a lot of monsters that are easy to dodge. And some of the areas are definitely way tougher than others, like when you get poison darts with...
Yeah, on top of traps.
Yeah, on top of traps and spinning things where it just really slows you down. But with all the tech there, I can definitely see them ramping up the difficulty in so many different ways. Whether it's time-based monster level, increasing the damage mods, overall the traps doing more damage, or a time limit. There's so many things that they can do, and I would like to see something like that. But as far as the difficulty now, I think it's in a pretty good spot. We see we saw, I think it was Carl or who posted the statistics of how many lives have been lost in the labyrinth. It's a
Oh, I
pretty
didn't see
good
that
number.
one. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't see
Yeah,
that either.
it's
No,
like
I think I agree. Like the difficulty of the traps themselves, I think it's really nicely done. I really do.
I think there's a lot more room for the potential and the difficulty of the puzzles. Like
Yeah.
there's the sequence one, which I think is really cool. I don't know if people are going to go out of their way to do the side areas or the extra zones. I've opened a few silver chests myself. They don't seem that
Yeah.
great, but the puzzle themselves was very fun and challenging. But I would like to see like a reward boost into those things so that there
Mm-hmm.
is an incentive to do it, or maybe like if you run the lab at a certain time or a certain difficulty, or if you complete all the things, you can get 2 helm enchants, or you can get
Yeah. Yeah.
multiple something that rewards you for taking the lab at a, I guess, an arbitrarily harder level than you're supposed to do. There's
Yeah.
the base where you just get your ascendancy and your 1 enchant and your 1 key. Then you can do 2 keys if you do a harder mode Izaro.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go above and beyond that, getting the keys, doing the dark shrine, doing something else, giving even more reward. I mean, the
Mm-hmm.
quantity bonus is not that significant. I mean, it's just adding like 1 map mod to the entire zone, and you get a small quantity boost. It doesn't feel that meaningful,
Yeah.
but I'm excited for the time trials. It's a new way to theory craft,
Yeah.
and
No. Exactly.
yeah, I mean, we're given all this power and ascendancy, and the game really hasn't changed outside of the Perandus being like somewhat sketchy here and there, but mostly due to performance issues and crashing. And I don't know. I feel we need something more challenging.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I could blast through the labyrinth for the most part on the builds that I played so far. Like I mean, I could just
I think
like run through everything.
I think it's very cool. Like the whole blasting through the lab in itself is not bad, right? Because it's not because it's not like you're not blasting through killing. No, you're making a build through movement speed. So now it's you can actually make really fast builds, and even Whirling Blades is not the best in there because like you keep hitting the sides and the traps and all that. Like no, just straight up movement speed with blink arrow and stuff that can actually like go over traverse different areas is probably even better, which I find very refreshing that you can
Yeah.
make those kind of builds, and they actually have a purpose now.
Yeah, Flame Dash
Like the
being able to hop bridges and stuff.
Yeah,
That's really, really cool.
yeah, I really like it as well. I like the entire idea behind the lab. I find super engaging and very enjoyable. Like every time I do the lab, I've re-rolled. Like I've died to some stupid things due to some performance issues in the league, but that set aside, I've never actually not enjoyed doing the lab. Every single time I've done it, I've enjoyed it. I know that I might be one of the few who can like re-roll 8 times and still enjoy the lab, but I don't know. I really like the concept of the lab and what they're trying to do with it, especially that there is risk involved logging out. For hardcore, I think that is one of the greatest things they've done so far in adding content. That there's actually risk in logging out because it sets you back in time. Not only like a portal, but actually like it could set you back like 10 minutes if you're struggling through like your leveling progress or whatever. So that's something I really enjoy with the lab.
Yeah, they did a really good job at making the lab feel like a rite of passage. Your character
Yeah.
can get some significant power and something unique, and you have to earn it. Like, granted, the lab might be easy for really good, meta builds or well-rounded builds, but it can be very difficult if you use underwhelming skills. And the Izaro fight can be very, very long if your single target damage, sucks. So it kind of makes you check: do I have adequate movement speed? Do I feel comfortable? Do I want to use regen? Do I want to use ES? How do I want to approach this lab? It creates new problems, which is good for the game because we need more problem solving. And
Yeah, exactly.
like Nugi said, it's bringing, other movement skills and making them relevant. Leap slam, leap slam, flame dash, blink arrow, all that stuff is really, really good. And lightning warp.
Yeah.
So I really like, the fact that your character has to go through some tough trial and then ascend and get some awesome power.
But a lot of people don't like that. I mean,
Right.
I mean, like I understand all the people who are like, oh well, it's an action RPG. There shouldn't be puzzles in this or yada yada. You know, it's just like it's someone that I feel like is a little, and I've talked about this a little bit on my stream, but you know, like whenever you're playing a puzzle game, you kind of embrace your failure, right? But the lab is kind of a weird thing for Path of Exile, I think, because if you fail in hardcore, you die. There's a really hefty penalty if you like really fail, other than like, you know, logging out or portaling. Well, if you die in the lab, that's what I'm saying. Just because the mechanics that can kill you aren't generally bosses. They're traps. You know, sometimes those darts could like really chunk you. They're the traps also that are triggered if you just walk over them. Then all of a sudden, like 5 darts will hit you. And don't get me wrong, for everyone in chat, I like the lab, but we have to acknowledge the people that feel that it's not the best thing for the game. Like otherwise, it's not a good discussion if we sit here and say, yeah, it's great. There are problems with it. People don't feel like they should be doing it sometimes. A lot of people don't.
Okay. You say it's a problem, right? You say there are problems with it.
Yeah.
But why is it a problem? That's kind of like that's kind of one of my arguments against it.
Right.
Like a lot of people hate it. It's like it's mandatory. You have to do it to ascend. Sure, you have to build around it. But you have to build around killing Malachi as well, or at least you did. And you still kind of do, right? You can't just go into Malachi with a terrible build. Let's say you have no fire resist. You can't do Malachi because every single fire trap is gonna literally one-shot you. Like you can't. If you want to stop the traps, if you want to have something to kill Malachi, to like there's the fire traps on the ground, you have to have something that can actually trigger it, or you have to trigger it yourself, meaning you take a lot of damage. And so, but you're fighting Malachi at the same time. If you remove Malachi from that portion and you still do the Malachi fire, right, where you have to kill the hearts, it's kind of the same thing.
Right. And like I've said the same things. Like you have to build around Malachi. You know, technically, if you like want to get down and dirty with it, you don't need the ascendancy passives. You don't.
No,
like
exactly.
They are an extension of power. The game already existed in a way where you could clear. You know, your Blade Vortex builds that you like playing now worked before, didn't they? Or wait, maybe yours didn't. I don't know. But like for Shockwave Totem, you don't really need the ascendancy passives. And I've seen multiple people say, I'm not even going to do my ascendancies because they don't like the lab. And I think that is problematic. The fact that they don't want to engage with it, like before, like the whole issue with trading. Like it sucks that we have people who don't even want to be a part of the trading system. We also have players that don't even want to be a part of the lab, and you know, to a lesser degree, ascendancies.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
always gonna. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I find it kind of ironic because you have like, I don't know if it's the same people, but you have so many people saying we want an alternative to endgame that isn't mapping, and then here GGG comes up with this elaborate thing that's not about XP per hour. It completely nicks that. It's about intricate movements and builds that can deal with crazy bosses, and that's what people have been asking for. Give us an alternative to mapping. This is completely different, and yet they're still not pleased. I'm just like, wow, like, what do you guys want? This is awesome. I mean, and it can go to so many degrees of difficulty now that the tech is there. That they can do all different kinds of things, and the time trialed runs, competing for like a little mini demi prize. Those are all pretty awesome exclusive things to, if you can theory craft. It's a new way to theory craft. It's a different problem to solve. And I think the way this meta is going, it's not about how do I tackle this problem, as how fast can I clear it. We get all this power, but is the difficulty really ramped up? And that's what I wanted to ask you guys. Do you guys feel this game is getting too easy, or like, how do you guys feel about the current meta? with the item acquisition and things like that.
Go ahead, Nugi.
Okay, I've given this a lot of thought, because has the game gotten too easy? I don't think so. Because realistically, how many players in softcore and hardcore actually did the hardest content in the game? There are not many players who do Uber. Even on standard, you might say that, oh, there's plenty of people doing. If you look at the numbers, there's not that many people doing Uber in standard. How many people do red maps? How many people get to core? How many people are doing Victor Square? And all these really endgame like challenges we have in the game. There's very, very few that can actually go there, and it takes so long to acquire what you need to get there. So now we have a spike in power level, right? Our characters are getting stronger and stronger, which pushes us closer. It gets us to that point a lot faster. So I think that's a good thing. I think it takes us a step closer to that. I think the early mapping has gotten there's kind of like this weird spot now to where like the T1 to 10s, the tier 1, like the whites and yellows, have gotten really easy now, to where it's such a breeze, and it feels like something you just do to just get the XP. But it's such a long way from going from the T1 to the T15, and there's kind of a gap in between where everything feels too much of a phase roll. You don't want to invest into the early level maps either. Like, who wants to invest chaos in making the T10s so hard that it actually challenges your character? Nobody wants to do that. You start investing when you get up to the red maps, because with how the system is made, the currency you spend also, like, it has to come back to you, right? So that's why you invest in these high maps, but there's just such a long way to get there. So I think that's kind of the thing we need to address now, rather than people being too powerful, because I think we're too powerful in the easy content, and there's very few checkpoints to where your character gets challenged now. You kind of hit like a wall at some point, and then you slam into it, and it's like you slam into it a few times, and then you go all the way back to all the easy stuff, and just rinse repeat. At least that's how I kind of feel that it is.
How do you feel about it, Waba?
Well, I mean, I agree with a lot of what Nugi's saying there. Like, yeah, you can't just blast. You could just absolutely destroy like tier 10 and below maps. Like right now with the Ascendancy passives at level 80, 85, which is considerably, it's probably like the easiest time to get 80 to 85 ever, and 90. But the power level of a level 85 character with Ascendancy passives is incredibly high compared to, you know, tier 10 maps. And then like, yeah, like I want a challenge, and I want to be able to test my character. And, you know, like what Nugi was saying, it is nice when you, like, I remember I did a tier 10 map, and I got a +2 off the boss, and so I did a tier 12, and then I got a tier 13. I was able to do one tier 13, and I was like, okay, I put all my currency in. You know, I didn't put all my currency into it, but I did everything I could to not only make it challenging, but also return for me. And then it just washed out and didn't really do anything for me. It gave me a couple more tier 7, tier 8 maps, and just I mean, yeah, like, you know, as much as people don't want, like, we all remember the spike in damage when Act 4 came out, right? Like, we all remember, like, when the game, when they just buffed damage overall for a little bit, and as much as we complain about that, it almost feels like it's needed right now, just because you can face roll through stuff. You know, a lot of these subclasses, they enable a lot of things. They enable so many things when it comes to end-game content that we have. And, you know, I agree.
I was one of the few people that wasn't complaining about that, because I knew that when they made this change, it was going to make other things more relevant. It was going to cause people to seek other methods of survival. You know, like, if it didn't exist, people would just go, you know, clear speed deeps, nothing else matters, right? But now that they did ramp up damage, they're like, well, damn, I can't keep doing the same build because I keep dying, and I got to change something. Now they're considering running blasphemy, enfeeble, blasphemy, temp chains, or they're considering running Arctic armor, things that they normally haven't been considering. But as far as like the easy part of the game and the hard part of the game, what Nugi said has a lot of truth. Like that, not many people get into the red maps and are really pushing their character. That's a very small minority of people that actually get to that stage, especially in hardcore leagues. But I'm kind of like looking at this from the high people on the ladder, like Havoc, Etup, and all of them. If they're saying the stuff is getting easier and the race to 100 is getting easier, doesn't that pose a problem? Like, how do you guys feel about the race to 100? Even though that we aren't the competitors, we are the spectators watching people race on the ladder. How do you guys feel about that being an easier feat or people getting there much quicker?
I want to hear what Nugi says, but real quick, there's a really good video on this by Ralph the Exile, just for everyone. I mentioned this yesterday on Moore's like little conversation we had with Moore's, but you guys should check that on YouTube. So yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Nugi.
Okay, so from the perspective of the high tier players, I think the problem here is that the way you gain XP has no danger to it anymore. That is the issue. It's all about, okay, so you get one of the T1 builds. People kind of figure that out every single league. People figure it out like just before we start, pretty much. Lately it's been very rare not to like have the general consensus where like this league is like obviously Voltaxic because it like lets you map easy and stuff. But so having the game being it's kind of difficult to say it's a problem and it's not a problem at the same time, because how can I?
Well, can you answer like how important is the race to 100 for you? Like as far as like the PoE culture, do you have any feeling or?
Yeah, I do. I back in the day I raced a lot more. Like back when it was not this. I don't like this meta right now where it's all about how fast you clear stuff rather than how cleverly you do it. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there is a lot of strategy into how you roll your maps, how you get the most XP out of a map, what kind of things you put on it. But then you go in and it's very rarely a tough thing to clear. There's very few people who die on the race to 100. And so because you can do it in gorges and you can do it in these easy yellow maps where there's no real threat to your character, it mostly becomes about who can stay up the longest.
Right. Attrition.
The risk, a lot of the risk has disappeared, which I feel like is not too good. Because it's very exciting following the race to 100, and because right now the race to 100 is basically a 1 week race, and the 1 week races, when they were there, were really fun, but there was a lot of risk in those. I feel there's a lot more risk back then. So, and the way people like there was more. I don't know. I guess it's kind of the same still.
I have a kind of a thought. Someone said this in chat, but
yeah.
So do you think that it's possibly that we're seeing all these like much faster, 100 times faster and faster because we're having more and more opportunities for support builds coming up? Because I don't really think you could, because I think one of the last 1 week races, I can't remember who it was. I think some safety truck got like level 91 or something. That seemed like crazy. I don't know what his group composition was. I don't know if he had a tri-curse support player with, all the bells and whistles of a support player now. But do you think that maybe it's just because support is just becoming more prevalent and there's a lot of untapped power that was there for such a long time?
No,
No.
I really don't think
I
that's the
think
issue.
supports gaining power is just one of the factors that makes the content easier, but it's not the culprit. I've given this a lot of thought of, how can we improve the race to 100? The hype, the challenge, and I would like to see people be more clever than how can I do this the most efficiently with XP per hour. That's all their main concern is, whether that's running arid lakes, gorges, and running them in 30 seconds with Valspark or whatever. But what would you guys think about XP being turned off after level 98 unless you're in a red map? Forcing these top less than 1% of the players to run red maps and run them rare, because they would be more scarce. Essentially they'd be incentivized to roll them pretty hard, and that would be the only way you could get XP. And I feel like this would avoid hindering the other part of the game where a lot of people enjoy getting to level 95, getting to level 96. It doesn't even concern them, because 98 to 100 is its own race itself. What do you guys think about that idea? Just straight up, you get no XP unless you're in a red map after level 98.
I think you need to have other side zones then that can also provide you with XP before that's ever gonna be Uber series. That zone has to grant you XP as well. You would have to have other Uber zones, I think, side zones that you could unlock through various means that could grant you a way to gain XP outside of maps. So you're not forced to doing it. So there's at least, maps could still be the best way of doing it, but there would be some other means of doing it. Then I would be okay with it. Right? It could be the top version of the lab. It could be the top version of, it could be Uber. It could be all these side zones. So it's not because only forcing everyone into the map system, I don't think it's a good idea.
But it's not every run, right? It's only people that are after level 98, which is such a minority of players.
Yeah, but would you be against having the Uber series zone granting you XP?
No, I wouldn't, because that's a level 80 zone, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, that would definitely be granting you XP. But anything over, whatever the eye level of the...
Okay, so a certain level of the zone, okay.
Yeah, a certain level of the zone. It's just straight up 0. If you want to run gorges all day, you get nothing at level 98. I think this would keep the integrity of the difficulty with the, high-end players and make it a way more exciting race than, how fast...
No, I would welcome it. Even in a non-optimal manner, just doing what you just said and only having red maps, I would actually welcome it in a race.
That would actually help a lot of things too, because people at that point, level 98 players would they would have a really large incentive to get rid of their lower tier maps. And some people still really feel like they have a hard time breaking that tier 8 section of maps. So if there are more tier 8s and tier 10s, because tier 10s and tier 11s are the most efficient XP per hour for 100, aren't they? Roughly?
No, the red maps are the most efficient.
The red maps are, okay.
The red maps are definitely, but it's just you can't stay in them forever.
Right.
And it's they the mods are a lot harder on red maps than they are on yellow maps.
Well, that's kind of what I mean, a part of the efficiency, the fact that it's harder to sustain them.
With the new supports and with people playing these crazy clear speed builds, they will one shot everything, even in T15 hard rolled maps. Some of the new builds.
Yeah.
Well, not everything, but they can handle very, very hard rolled maps, especially with the support.
Well, I think all of this kind of plays into the fact that what one of the things we originally talked about is just the game is easy, because we're having this discussion about just tier red, red map, red maps, right? And that is such a small portion of the game that majority of players play.
I wouldn't say it's a small portion of the game. The whole map system is a big portion of the game, and even because
maybe he is looking for a small percentage of people that participate.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
that's
okay,
what I
yeah.
mean. Yeah, that's 100% what I mean. Like,
Okay.
other than that, again, like what we're saying, like, you could destroy everything up to that.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just like, and, something that you've said, like, it sucks that you're kind of at this point where you can't even challenge your character because you have to depend on this, like, RNG of map drops, right? You have to depend on,
Yeah,
you
but
have
not
to
only
buy
that,
it.
I think an important thing here is that the way people approach games and have always approached games is that everyone goes through the path of least resistance. So we could, at any given time, challenge our character. You could be running through content that was not meant for you, right? You could be rushing through content to underlevel your character, to arbitrarily make the content harder, right? You can do that if you want to, so you can always make it harder, but you will never do that because it's pointless. The same thing with maps. You can roll them from. You can have a dried or a tropical island. You can chaos it and then you can vol it, and you can start doing that at level 60 and go in. But nobody's going to do that. So there has to
Whoa.
be.
Go ahead.
Okay. Some people are, but
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like a very smart way to play the game. If you start doing that, people are going to say, "But why?" Okay, it's because I want to challenge yourself. Okay, but it's not very smart, is it? No, it's not.
Right.
So you're already you're trying to create something that you're doing things that are not very smart in terms of beating the game.
Right, but it's like it's a different way. We love that the game is choose your own difficulty. You can essentially put in, easy maps, white maps, blue maps, or you can vol them. Like I was, doing exactly what you're saying. Since I am playing on the Softcore Apprentice League for the challenges, I was arbitrarily increasing the difficulty just to see if I could do it. Not because I was advocating that this is the most optimal way to play. It was just a challenge of, could I do this map with this build? And
Okay, yeah.
yeah, it's just an arbitrary challenge, which people make all the time. I mean, look at Punchy Hobo, Self-Found. These are all things that people force on themselves, but they can because the game allows you to pick your own difficulty. You could choose to play naked with, no gear.
But if you can always choose your own difficulty, then we get to the problem we have right now with leveling to 100.
Okay, what do you?
Because
what do you mean
people
by
just
that?
choose the easiest way. And then
Right.
people complain about the game being too easy because you will always go through that. So if there isn't an actual like barrier you have to push through, nobody's going to do it in the pursuit of getting to 100 or
Right.
Uber. It's the same thing with Uber right now, right? You could go in there with a Viper Strike build, like a one-hand Viper Strike build non-crit. Or you can go in there with a Quad Curse Bladefall miner, right? Like it's so much easier right now than it was before, and it doesn't feel like for players who want the challenge, they don't want to have to arbitrarily push it, like give themselves the challenge. It has to be there for something you can overcome. It's the same thing with the lab, right? Being a rite of passage, you have to have a character that can actually overcome this obstacle, which is why I like it.
Yeah. I mean, I think XP per hour is one of the things that kind of like really destroys the game at the very, very high levels. But it's like, it's a nice science behind it at the lower levels. Like people are trying to find the most efficient thing to do, which is a good
sure.
thing, But at the same time, I want to see an awesome competition. I want to see people really using their wits and not, chugging Red Bulls and doing stuff through attrition and trading like a madman so that you can run blue maps and just, steamroll content. Even though I'm not a participant, I want to be clear on that. I am not one of these people that do that, but I would like to see it as a spectator, people ripping at the top of the ladder because it's just difficult. That's the game that we really fell in love with.
Kind of like on that idea and kind of pulling from other things, like the whole idea of like having a tower that you have to keep like going up. What is it called? You know what I'm talking about, where
Like a gauntlet?
like a gauntlet, yeah. Like just where the mobs keep getting harder and harder. And someone had said in chat that, what if you like raise the map tier? Like, is that something that we kind of need now? Like, what if red maps were like, the hard maps, but then there was one more tier that was the actual, like, yeah, you should only be doing this at 95 plus if you come in here, like, because we've always talked about, like, I know we've talked about this a couple times on What's Up Wraeclast, but it'd be really nice to have something to do at level 100. Because what did Havoc do once he got level 100?
Yeah,
he just made another character, and that's great for replayability, right? But how awesome would it be if as in terms of a spectator, you were watching people who were 95 plus or 100 doing things that only they could do, and that definitely puts a lot more incentive on achieving those things, because I think a lot more players could get level 95 plus, and possibly 100 than we currently have. But it's such a time investment, and it doesn't seem like it really matters in the end.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see, I've been advocating something like where there's an end event of the league where players come back, they bring in their best character, and then we do like an endless ledge that just gets crazy. And then we have a ladder, at the end. This is where everybody gets sentenced to die. Like, once you're done with this event, your character's done for the league, and then it'll be sent to its parent league or whatever. But it's like something that everybody submits so that we can get some like end of the league hype. People are like theory crafting, min-maxing, it's like getting ready for the race, the D-Day of all characters. And that would give, people either level 90 or level 100 and see who can make it through this gauntlet and how many levels did they go through before they died or ended up logging out. Something like that would be awesome for a permanently. Give you something to strive towards or excel at and set your goal. Oh, I got rank 100 last league. I want to try for rank or top 50. Something you can do with your character at the highest gear levels and give you a reason to min-max.
I think that's an awesome idea. Honestly, it's kind of the same thing that you could draw the line to PvP or to racing. It's kind of what we're missing there. They tried it once. I don't know why they're not doing it again, to where it's like you're building, like you're collecting points over the season to be a part of this final event, which is always something that's super nice. And having it within the normal game, I think, is an amazing idea. So there's always something to build towards, because I feel like that is the one thing that I'm kind of missing right now in PoE. There's rarely when your character is done, like complete, quote unquote complete. Let's say you don't need a series like acuities or whatever, but your character is otherwise complete. Then, well, what am I like improving it for? I reach 100 and my character has the items it needs. Then it's over, and you the game is over for you there, and you just stop playing.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great idea.
And yeah, it's just something that I don't know, and it seems like the labyrinth may have been like kind of a possible thing for that, just something to do like when your character is done, because it does, when your character is done does not mean it's level 100. It's when you feel it's done, right? It's kind of like
exactly
thing. So I might get level 90 and be like, okay, well, now I'm just gonna do these like labyrinth runs nonstop because I want to get on the leaderboards, which is where the damn leaderboards. But I mean, yeah, I would love content to do at a higher level that was, and that kind of ties into something that you've always said. It's great to have a way to measure the strength of your character.
Yeah.
Because a level 100 character that could get, to 40 plus in whatever, any sort of like kind of like dungeon gauntlet thing, it's like, oh man, I have a character who could do this. It's like a car that could have a 9-second quarter mile, right? Like it's fun to do those things. So, and pushing people in, and like as when it comes to players like Havoc, for example, he gets really good viewership going all the way up to 100, right? But then about the time that it takes him to get 100, or just any player who's doing it, whoever's like the at the forefront of the 100 race at the start of a league, as soon as they get 100, all that hype just dies. It just like I feel like it kind of nosedives because it's just like, oh well, we saw him do 100. Now he's just gonna level another character. Now he's back on Twilight Strand and he's killing Hillock again, and it would just be really interesting. I feel like that would help the leagues a little bit. So
yeah, I mean, even like Etup, he didn't hit 100, but his attitude changes when somebody hits 100. He's just
for sure, yeah, because the
his drive, the risk is over. It's like his drive instantly gets killed, and then he sticks around for a little while, and then he goes away because there's no more reason to play. And I'm trying to extend that whole hype train of people competing, and it's disheartening when Havoc gets 100 and he's like, well, that was easy. Or this is easier than it was last league. Just like things like that kind of. I mean, it's still a feat of it's still impressive that he does that. The amount of attention you need to do that for long hours and the drive that you need. But if he's objectively saying that it's getting easier, then shouldn't we make it harder for that race? And I don't think he would complain. It would definitely be nice for him to have more competition or more risk.
Right. Well, so okay, let's go ahead and shift gears a little bit because this is all something we'd probably agree on. We want high level content, but there's a lot of like really great things going on right now. I want to talk a little bit about the subclasses and all the remember yesterday when we were talking about how like there's so much value in the champion and everything. I want to talk about like some of the what you guys feel are the best like value subclasses, like intrinsic values for the subclass. Like Guardian, Elementalist has some too. I mean, they all do to some degree, but what you guys kind of are excited about and what you feel like is something to look out for, something you keep seeing that you want to pick up on.
Are you asking me or
whoever? I mean, you guys could go ahead.
I mean, go ahead. Go ahead, Hege.
No, I was just just wondering the question.
Oh, well,
what is?
I just want to talk about some of the things we really like at this point now. Some of the things that we're really enjoying about it, about the subclasses and everything.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah, I think too many things get overlooked, and people are looking like, as a streamer with, when you have viewers come in, they're always asking, what is the best? What is the best? And it's like, it's so hard to tell you what you should do, when you should do it and how you should do it and how you should execute it. There's so many things that specialize a certain skill and achieve different things. It's if you want to do red maps, if you want to farm at Siri, if you want to farm the lab, like people just need to hone in on what they want to achieve and then pick the ascendancy that suits them. There's not a right or wrong answer. And people, I don't know, I feel like we've been so used to being told what to do, what class, give me the skill tree, give me the links, tell me the items. And now it's the doors are open. You can do this as so many ways with so many different items, so many different supports, curses. There are so many options. There's not any one answer.
Right. Well, and it's kind of like what you were saying, supports like Guardian is an incredibly interesting subclass. And I think the overall kind of response to it when it was initially announced or teased or whatever, that was just kind of like, what? Like I felt like it was a little negative, and now it's kind of shifted into this thing that's like Guardian is an incredibly powerful support. Like there's a lot of strength in it that just is.
Really? People were hating on the Guardian?
Well, I don't know. I might be wrong. I mean, that's just the way I received
I don't know.
it.
It's probably through like the general public who are not too familiar with like low life builds and that kind of stuff, and who the Guardian was definitely not undervalued with the people I talked to. But I could definitely see him being slightly undervalued in the eyes of someone who's just trying to make like a more generic character.
Right.
because it can be difficult to see exactly why it's so good, right? Because when you look at 1% physical mitigation, it doesn't look like much, but when it starts getting to to where you get 5, 6, 7, 8%, it starts becoming really good. But even then, that low percentage number doesn't. It's hard to translate that into how strong it actually is when you start stacking all these things together. So I think that's kind of one of the reasons why Guardian is one of the characters a lot of people don't really understand the power of and why he's so good. The same thing with the small amounts of armor for some builds. When you're looking at for an energy shield based build, for someone who's played that a lot, you will, like for someone who hasn't played it, you won't understand how good armor is because of how hard it is to get, to why everyone has to run some kind of like physical mitigation potion on an ES character. So unless you've actually been there, you won't know why it's so good.
Right.
I think the Guardian, overall as a whole, it's easy to look at it and say, oh my God, this is strong. But I think the reason why it's so unpopular is because not many people want to play support, because it usually, relies on some kind of cohesive group and group play, and you just don't solo as a Guardian. You're there to help your party, and usually people at the top of the ladder, that's like the best thing to have is a Guardian. At the same time, on the same token, I don't think this little pie chart that GGG released to us about like the class breakdown and what people are choosing represents on how powerful something is. I think it's just maybe a certain play style. I mean, look at Pathfinder. It's 1.3%.
Oh yeah. No, it has no bearing. It tells nothing about the power. It tells what's popular. It tells what's in the meta, but nothing to the actual power level of all the classes.
Pathfinder in the right hands is insanely powerful, but in the wrong hands, it's useless. It's borderline useless. But a lot of these numbers were interesting. And any of them stick out to you guys? Let me know.
Oh man, I should have had this pulled up. I totally forgot what it was. I mean, I obviously like the big one is the how popular champion is. But that, that's something that's like really easy to identify, kind of what you were saying.
Yeah.
Like it's hard to see how good armor is for an ES based character because of the difficulty in getting it. But having permanent fortify, completely different story that opens up a whole lot of avenues, for all sorts of things, and there's a lot of value in that specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, look at the number difference, 20.21% versus 9% from softcore and hardcore. I think that's cool to look at the differences between the league and what people are seeking and what they value. It's definitely interesting.
Will you post that in chat, please?
Yeah, I'll post it.
But another one that I found like really interesting. I've been talking about this the past couple days on my stream is Elementalist actually. Like between Conflux and a lot of the subclasses, it's like they give you an extra link, which is considered that's a lot of power, right? Just getting a 7th link, or even an 8th link to some kind of degree is really good. The Elementalist getting Conflux paired with their elemental proliferation.
Beacon of Ruin,
yeah, that's
and Paragon of Calamity.
Like so good. A build that I really want to play. Bob Slop released a build. It's a ball lightning build that uses Ember Wake paired with the taming, and it just, it kind of like the way it looks in a tier 1 map is the same it's going to look in like a high tier map. We kind of talked about this yesterday. So it looks a little underwhelming at first, but how good it actually is, like, goes very well with climbing maps.
I think one of the reasons why Elementalist was so underappreciated, I kept saying that we were probably going to see some of the best builds come out of Elementalist because of its mechanics. And I think we are starting to see some really amazing builds coming out of it now. But one of the reasons why it was so underplayed was because of how out of favor Prolif had become. Everyone was talking down about Prolif, how bad it is now. Like, it was only good back with Flame Blast and all that. right? Because of the less damage and the area getting smaller, and it was just being purported so many times. So many players were just so like they were so unhappy with how Proliv had become, and they just immediately saw Elementalist and saw Proliv again. But now Proliv is terrible because it's terrible in the current meta, and so they couldn't see what it could do with no damage penalty as a seventh link, and not even to mention Conflux. Yeah, no mana multiplier. Not even to mention Conflux, which is like, and even like, I would argue that that's just as strong as the Proliv part. The fact that you can have 100% chance to ignite and 100% chance to shock, which is completely absurd, because you can't get that anywhere else.
You can even do that with a chaos skill.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do it with anything.
You do it with Essence Drain, but yeah, I mean, I've been one of those advocates. I was like, I played Proliv before and after the Elementalist, and even before it was not weak. People were just fixated on, oh, that's the word on the street that Proliv sucks, so let's go ahead and throw poop at Proliv. But that was far from the case. Its limitation was narrowed down for sure, because you wanted to pick something that did massive AoE in itself, like Fire Trap, Flame Blast, Fire Discharge, those things, or maybe even Fire Nova Mine. Those things already have a big area coverage, and then Proliv would only extend that area. You don't pick something that's small, like the old Proliv where you could just crit, Flame Blast, baby circles, and, Proliv the whole screen. Yeah, that was taken away. And things like, what else did people Proliv back in the day? Avatar Fire, like Shield Charge or whatever, people would Proliv that. Yeah, those things kind of faded
even
away.
Cold builds.
For sure. Yeah, cold builds doing the same thing. But the fire builds that had big AoE, they were still strong. And I showcased that before and after with the Elementalist, and people were definitely surprised. It's so cheap to do, too. I was surprised that, a lot of people were downplaying it. Well, I guess I wasn't that surprised, because that was the word on the street.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of fun. I mean, anyone who played Proliv back in the day remembers like how fun like Proliv is, but it doesn't, like, I could understand, because it did get hit with a pretty big nerf in the AoE range and the less. I mean, that is pretty substantial. And then they're, looking at Elementalist, and because the AoE range on Elementalist Proliv is not very big, but I mean, there are a lot of these subclasses that just have like something about that enable things, and it's just Elementalist is one that looks really really fun. So, and Guardian's way down at the bottom, like way down at the bottom. So, along with Pathfinder, I find
Guardian Slayer.
Yeah,
Elementalist.
I think it's interesting that some people are playing Saboteur. I didn't think that would be as popular as it is.
Oh, you didn't?
No, I thought it was good.
People love traps in general.
Dude, what happened to the Assassin train? People were saying Path of Assassin. What's up with that? Where are the Assassin numbers? They're, in the middle. Aren't Pathfinder and Assassin. That's what I heard on streams that people are preaching. Everybody's going to be an Assassin because why do anything else? And I'm just like, look at these numbers.
The power level of Pathfinder was absurd, though, when it was initially showcased with the 20%, and it was nerfed over several times, the Pathfinder, to the point where people kind of started stepping off again when they saw that. The Assassin, yeah, I think there was like one of the things why Assassin is less popular is because you can use the crit gem now as well. They introduced first Assassin was showcased, then it was nerfed, and then Crit Strike gem came in as well, and then you could also get some crit like the crit percent in Ascendant as well, for instance. And Ascendant is a lot more flexible. Mm-hmm. Oh, and Diamond Flask as well came in to the point where you don't even want to hit the crit cap. So there's a lot of factors coming in to kind of lower it, but it was definitely the most hyped class for sure.
The change to the crit gem was a huge, like 180 from what it was. I mean,
That's what I feel like balanced out these classes. Without that crit chance gem and without the diamond flash change, we would be looking at some very different numbers, like favoring like assassin, because having that crit chance gem enabling you to do crit, with other specialties, I think is, awesome. Like the Templar Inquisitor. But do you think GG? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go. No.
I was gonna say, do you think that GGG is gonna look at this and base their buffs and nerfs off of this? Like, do you think the Slayer is going to get some numerical buffs, or what do you think, Waba-chan?
I mean, if they like, I think it depends on what they want. If they want more people to play, if they want people to feel like it's, something that they can choose to do, then yes. But what if they're fine with it? Like they just might be fine with these numbers, to be completely honest. Like I don't see, because there are some that are, to be honest, I thought Slayer would be higher than Juggernaut. I thought Juggernaut was going to be one of the lower ones, but
really,
yeah, I mean, that does not reflect what I think of the subclass itself. I'm just saying, like, the feeling that I got from players, just that I thought Trickster would be a lot higher too, because Trickster seems really fun, with what you get with it, and yeah, like even Raider to some degree, too. So
Raider is pretty popular.
No,
it's
yeah.
It's only because like the only reason you see Raider and Deadeye not being higher in hardcore is just because of how strong Champion is.
Right.
That's the only reason. Like Champion for hardcore is just the best for any bow character that's in that side of the tree. There's just no question, because it's the only way to gain the Fortify buff, and the Fortify buff is by far the greatest buff you can have.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I just think that, if there are any changes that GGG would probably make, it'd be, the Champion getting nerfed a little bit and the Slayer being buffed. I don't see them changing the Guardian, because I think that's more of a playstyle thing. Yeah. Same thing with the Pathfinder. I don't think that those two are weak in power. It's just a style type thing.
Right. I mean, I even went from playing a Raider on a build that I've been playing, a build that I had chat with Nugiyen about, an Iron Commander Elemental Siege Ballista build. I went from Raider to Champion solely because of the value that I get out of Fortify. And when it comes down to it, I didn't really feel like I lost too much damage by going Champion versus Raider, because I mean we have a lot of damage right now, and Champion's just so damn good.
You see, that entire point also ties into why not that many play Assassin, because it's kind of what I expected going into this league. I actually didn't expect Assassin to get overly played at all, even because the power level of the characters right now and before was already so damn high, so overkilling on damage was not important. The important part about the Ascendancy is, where do you get something that is build enabling, or that gives you the greatest value per point? Champion is one of the highest values you can get. Saboteur is build enabling for traps and mines. I don't know if it's mines, but definitely for traps. I think that's so much more important to why people pick all these different ones, because they want something to fit either their playstyle or a build they want to do, rather than just damage. If the only thing that mattered in this game was damage, then everyone would be playing Assassin. But thank fuck for that it's not the only thing that matters.
One thing that annoys me is that the Ascendant is just one, and we can't actually see the breakdown of what people chose within the Ascendants. I think that would be great if they would post, what is the most popular subclass of the Ascendant. So it's just a mystery of what people are taking or what they're leaving behind. But I think I might want to try an Ascendant, maybe using the Slayer, because of the Leech with EA and Elementalist. I think that'd be really, really cool. Something that we didn't really have, unless you put life leeching and just some extra pen and extra defense against your own, which would be really, really good. But I find it funny that a lot of the class representation in the softcore leagues, the Marauder and Duelists are at the bottom. And they have a bit better representation in the hardcore leagues.
It's a very, very equal distribution in the softcore leagues, though. Like, even if they are at the bottom, it's still, like Marauder and Duelist, it's so close. It's I don't know. The only one that's really stands out in softcore would be Shadow. That's played more than the other, isn't it?
Yeah.
The others, the others are kind of very, very finely balanced. And even then, like, it's such a minuscule. It's so little.
Yeah, the spread's really good on it.
Yeah.
Like, it's not.
The Hierophant did a lot better than I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people picked Hierophant.
Well, even Nugiyen was saying, like, this, it's kind of, well, this is what you guys talked about on State of Exile, you know, like, it's almost for like a different meta, for a different way of thinking on how you're going to execute your build. So I think the Hierophant may have some things coming down the line. Do you think, you know, this is something that, you know, I kind of touched on a little bit ago when I was talking about, like, Bob's build using Emberic, but, like, now I feel like with all these subclasses and all these things that could be enabling, it's like I'm just waiting for that, like, one really cool build that uses a unique that is, you know, one fusing or people vendor right now, right? I'm just waiting for that one that uses it's ambush charge, right? Like, for some reason that to, like, come up in the meta as, like, actually, like, a really strong thing solely because of these passives. They're really exciting. So
I think ambush charge was used by Malari Gaming for the Cyclone MF ghost busting thing to get endurance charges and stuff for, like, survivability. But you know, speaking of Bob and his unique and stuff, the item acquisition is something that we haven't really talked about. The drastic boost in every single, like, hot ticket item, you know, the accessibility to headhunters, lightning coils, you know, do you guys think that this is a good thing for the game? Do you guys think that this is a good long-term thing?
yes, long term, yeah, just flat out. I think. Wait a second. I'm sorry, I missed item acquisition. I'm thinking of stash tab, like premium stash tab.
No. I'm talking about Perendis Pro, Kadiro hooking it up and flooding the leagues with items that were once, like, god tier, now actually very, very attainable and accessible.
So this is a really touchy subject because there's so many people who are torn about this. And I've said this before, no one would argue that a lot of people, like even all of us, we're having such a blast playing this league right now because of everything that you can do between the new subclasses, all the gear that you could get. Everything just turns out to be a good time when you're playing it, right? But you know, for my mind, it's just like, what's next? Like, are you guys gonna have, you know, because we have so many new players right now, it's like too much good stuff at once. Like I have, you know, I was talking about, I had a friend that started playing recently who started playing specifically for Ascendancy, not for Apprentice League. He started playing for the subclasses. He never played Path of Exile before. And he messaged me a couple days in. He's like, man, I got so much gear immediately. Like, I didn't know it was this easy. And at that point, I had to explain to him that Kadiro was a part of the Challenge League. It wasn't a part of the core game. That's usually not how it goes. And I worry about that. We have these new players coming in, having a blast. Say there's a new player that comes in. They love the Labyrinth. They love the subclasses. They love all these things. But then the next league comes, and they're so hyped to do it. Kadiro's gone, and they're just like, what is this? Like, I'm not getting the gear that that I was before. Those are the things that kind of worry me about it, and it's like a hard truth. Okay,
so I'm probably for one of the players who probably spend some of the most time within this game. I actually see this as a very, very good thing, and I hope that it stays. I think there are some balance issues. I think that they've already Like whatever you want to, like whatever GDD says or not, I'm under the assumption, and that's just me, that they have already looked into a lot of the numbers in terms of like Headhunter. I am not seeing any single person anywhere talk about a Headhunter or giving out want to sell my Headhunter thing anymore. It was like all over the place in the beginning. I haven't seen a single one since. Like in a week, I haven't seen anyone post anywhere about Headhunter. So I think there's a lot of balance, balance in the numbers of the coin and the coin rates and the drop rates. I think that's an issue on its own. I don't think we should tie these two things together. Whether or not it's a good thing that we are getting more uniques and the rate we're getting them at. Because I think it's a really good. I think this is great. I think this league is amazing. I think I'll explain why. Okay, so I'll take you back to closed beta. If it was so bad, if having uniques is so if having uniques is so bad because they're build enabling a lot of the times, then having 6 links is also bad and 5 links. They buffed 6 links and 5 links a lot. By so much, and even 4 links, so that you could actually put together your build. And I think that's very, very important that they made the accessibility of both through what's he called, like the masters. This is one of the main, one of the good things that came out of masters is Burichi. How you can interact with him and how you can vol stuff as well, right? You can vol up something and you can still like change it. So now the Volar becomes the extension, like the truly end game piece of gear is something that you Volar for the corruption. And so you could go through, in my world, going through like 10 6-link lightning coils for the end game character, like for the absolute perfect item, and actually being able to do so for the Volorps, and you have that gamble over and over again would be amazing. I would love that. Because that's how you truly create these end game items to where you like use the Volorps or whatever, or the enchants. I think one of the issues right now, we don't have a good enough, or there's not enough, like there's not a layer that's like on top of the build enabling uniques. A lot of people are talking about the uniques being like the T1 uniques, right? This is the end goal for your character, but it shouldn't be.
Right.
It should be. It's the same reason why it was. A lot of people took issue with Lionized Glare back in the day. It was the only bow anyone would use. But then they introduced Harbinger bows, which was great. So now you have the next tier, and the for physical bows, the true end game is a rare, and for a lot of it, like it should be like that. It should be a rare. We can argue about like something like Lightning Call. Maybe the power level needs to, or the downside needs to be a little bit bigger. But for people who think that the only item, the best item that you can have is Lightning Coil, like they're mistaken. Just straight up mistaken. It is not the end all for every single build. It's just not like with how the scaling of the game like shifts all the time. Having a low life pool is actually worse now than it's so easy to get physical mitigation now that having the lower life pool because you're wearing a lightning call is actually at a disadvantage. Often you would rather have a higher lightning call, higher life pool, and then you would go something like champion to have that permanently, and you would get a 120 life roll item. You would get belly. You would use that Calm's Heart, right? To where you can push your health pool to 10k instead of sitting at the 8k where you can get one shot by a volatile in minus max. So the meta will always be shifting in terms of what kind of items are going to be the best. That's always going to happen. But uniques are supposed to be build enabling items that are fun to play with, that you build your character around, and then you have these extensions of that should be the end game. In my opinion,
one of the things that you said is like something I didn't realize, but the more and more uniques that we have, because it's like everybody looks at their shavs, right, and thinks like, man, I would love to Valor the 6-link shavs to get +1 gems on it. Mm-hmm. But it was such a it was such a big risk at such a high cost that it generally wasn't taken by most people. But having more uniques available will aid that. If they do come out or come down in their price, and it's 6 linkings easier, it becomes much more. That becomes like the end game, kind of what you're saying.
I think crafting has been taken out of the meta for way too long. Like we don't have by doing this, at least you introduce like more warlords. Like you make it like. You make it so that more people are going to use warlords and stuff. The only issue right now is that the power level compared to the content is just kind of like out of balance to where you don't need to warlord anything to beat the content. So that's the issue right now. When you get the gear, there's no point of pushing the gear even further.
Right.
But, at the same time, we've been like, GGG doesn't want to set a precedence where, you're getting all these things, you're used to getting certain things a certain way, and then all of a sudden that goes away and it feels bad. But I think one thing that we need to take into consideration are the people that only like to play 1 or 2 characters a league, and then they're done. Once they get to the goal that they leave the league, they go play a different game or whatever. I feel like the build enthusiasts, like all of us, where we make multiple builds, we find this awesome because we can make all these builds and it doesn't cost that much. It's our decisions have less ramifications or penalties if we make the wrong decision because it didn't cost that much to begin with. And is that really a good thing? I have my doubts. I feel the accessibility is getting a bit high, so much that our decisions are less meaningful, and people aren't solving other problems. Like, okay, if this costs this much, how am I going to get the currency to get this? Well, I'm going to make an MFer. MFers are probably in the hurt box because all these awesome items that they're finding no longer sell for a lot of currency. And that's another feeling that anybody gets is, oh, a Mjolnir sold for 25x. Now I can barely sell it for an X and a half, and it's only worth something because someone needs to ID it for the challenge. And is that a good thing? Like, I don't feel that excitement. I don't feel that exhilaration or that rush when something does drop. I'm just like, oh, it's worth this now. That's something that's hindering my experience with item acquisition. It's less meaningful.
Well,
you know what I'm talking about.
But to your own point, you've never been a person that said you like to MF. You have been a person that, in the past, you have stated that you
it's not
just
my
want
style.
to play. It's not your style. Like,
I get it out of attrition.
Yeah, like
But I still
can I
find
flip
these
that one
uniques.
around a little bit?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I think you're making a good point. In the state of the current game, you're making a good point, right? There's less and less big ticket items or things we get excited about finding. And I do think that's actually a problem. But then the question becomes, how should you solve it, right? Because we're getting afraid of the next league, as if the only way to have items that will give you this rush is by having these build enabling items be those items. But do they have to be the only items to have it like that? Because that's kind of where I'm thinking. No, they don't. Like we do have Skyforths and stuff that's kind of limited later on. Like they've tried so hard getting introducing like deterministic farming through whatever. I feel like they've kind of, in my opinion, and people might disagree, but I think they somewhat failed in making good deterministic farming. I think it would be great having some very powerful items.
Cards, right?
Yeah, divination cards, exactly. But I would really like having some powerful items being like locked behind some bosses, and maybe having MF being a great way to like unlock that.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of like what Atsiri does.
Yeah, exactly. It's very hard to bring an MF into it too. But
You gotta have some balls.
But it could be really cool if actually bringing an MF in there would be nice to some extent.
Right. Yeah, if you could actually do that. Well, kind of on the
Or
point.
maybe make rares have a better range of what rolls they would roll if you MF'd, rather than only being good for uniques.
Right. Now, but kind of what you were saying earlier, like, how if you would choose like a tier 1 rolled chess piece with 120 life, possibly over a lightning coil, right? But then there are still the uniques that are so build enabling that you cannot replace them with a rare. Shavs, for example. Like, for your build, you cannot replace a Shavs. I would even possibly say Skyforths may fall under that too, depending, but not as hard as Shavs. What if we, kind of in line with the point of using Val Orbs, what if they added some implicits that you could get with Val Orbs that were rarely rare, that had that property of Shavs? That might be a stupid idea, but I mean, what if you could roll an 800 ES or a 950 ES chess piece that was insane, and you Val Orbed it, and you got energy.
Some
30.
of the
Right.
I would be down with that.
Because that takes those build enabling things, puts it in line with that, and pushes crafting. Because I've even said this before, I would love more like crafting. And crafting's so fun, and I love the idea of it. It's one of the things that pulled me to this game. But how many times have I really crafted? Like, so little, because there's
crafting has really fallen out of favor, especially after they introduced masters. Not to say there's nothing good about masters, but that the introduction of masters really took a big toll on crafting in general.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely eased the leveling process by heaps. I mean, it's just insane what it can do to iron out your character without having to trade. And I think people were really appreciative of that, because eliminating the need to go out and buy something and contact somebody. People were already cringing at trading, but they felt like it was a necessary evil because they needed to resist cap for a fight. But, back to the whole item acquisition thing. I mean, okay, let's say in this league, you can make 9 builds, right? Is this good for the game long term? Like, let's say you're used to making 1 to 2 builds and polishing them off. Now you're a player that's going through many builds at an accelerated rate, and then down the road you'll be like, well, I've already tried that, or I've already done that, or I've already had experience in this, and therefore you don't want to do it anymore, so you have less reason to play. So I feel it's kind of bad for accelerating that process, because that's the content of this game, is trying different avenues and exploring different possibilities, and having consequences for your decisions. Well, if we're taking a lot of the consequences out, then the content's going to be done faster, and we will get bored quicker, is essentially what I'm saying. Like, this league is great because there's so much crap to do, but is this good long term when you've already tried everything you wanted to try? And that's how a lot of players will feel. They're like, I usually leave the league once I've accomplished everything I wanted to do with this character. Okay, I got a lightning coil, I got a taste of hate, I'm doing red maps, I'm bored now, I'm gonna go play something else. And people leaving the league makes the league stale, and it's really, really bad, right? I mean, we can all agree that when people leave the league, it gets very frustrating.
Yes.
But I feel like that's a room for item acquisition. When people leave the league, increase the drop rates of stuff so that people can still make their builds later in the league, even though that there are people, they're not available to trade or whatever. I feel like at the very beginning, I don't know, it just needs some tuning. I feel like it's too fast right now. People are going to explore so many builds. Next league, we're not getting another Ascendancy. We're not getting an expansion. We're getting a new league. So I feel like the Labyrinth alone, it was enough content for me. And that Labyrinth and the Ascendancy trees was enough. I didn't even need Perandus to be happy. But next league, we're just getting a league.
Yeah.
And we've already explored, the other part, because we're accelerating at such a fast rate. I feel like we're numbing ourselves a bit. We're not making these plans. We're like, I'm just going to do it because I can.
I think the assumption you're making with that is that the end goal for this game will always be these tier uniques. That there cannot be an additional like stage to it. Because if the game is never gonna evolve past these items, in terms of power level of the items, or in terms of what you can do with them, or if the game doesn't get any harder than this, yes, I agree. It's very problematic, because then we only have power creep, or we're not. Well, power creep is such a difficult term, or it's kind of weird because it's not really power creep, because then you would have to like introduce a new lightning coil that's just slightly better. That's power creep. But what I mean here is that if we just keep increasing power of our items and players without doing anything to the game, sure, yes, I agree. Then we have a definite problem, because then you complete your character very quickly, and there's no point in making your character any stronger, because you're already completing all the content like straight away. And in that sense, I agree. There's a problem. If they don't have a solution to that, then yes, it's a problem.
Well, and you know, this also kind of like what was talked about yesterday. With more is just that if you know, if players, no, it was Rise in your chat. You're just talking about like how people are leaving this league faster, and it's because of item acquisition, and you know, like I had pointed out, you could reverse that if people had more items, if people got these items more often, they're more inclined to try different builds. Yeah. Like right now on my stash tab, I'm sitting on, you know, a bunch of items that will enable me to do other builds that I'm just waiting for, right? And that, you know, just getting more items will let people play more builds. And a lot of people have already said it. Parandus is like the league to get a headhunter. It's the league to try to, you know, do something crazy.
It was the first week.
Yeah, it was the first week. Yeah. But yeah. So I don't know. I just wanted to throw that out there.
But I mean, let me ask you in a more general fashion: what brings you back to PoE? Like, for Nugi, like what brings you back?
What brings him back?
Basically,
so initially it's the like the start of a new league is always exciting. A lot of new players are playing, a lot of new builds to explore. Then there's the whole push to 100. I am kind of participating. Right now I just have really crappy internet, so I just don't trust it, so I'm not really pushing for it, but I'm always hopeful that my internet is not going to crap out at some point. So I always had the hope that it's going to go well at the start of the league, so I come back for that. And then just to explore like the wealth of builds that's always going to be available with all the different balance changes. I really enjoy that. And then there's racing that I enjoy a lot to participate in. And I've been sticking around for longer and longer and longer over the last leagues they've actually introduced. I think they've made the game better and better and better so far. So I'm sticking around longer and longer and longer. And I think this league, I am definitely sticking around even longer, because I can see myself creating a lot of different builds. I can take on some of the very hard content. I'm looking forward to doing all the T15 maps, even though it's still kind of frustrating how to get there, but it's gotten easier to do that. So I've been very positive over all these, even with all the things I'm getting, and I'm not going to stop. I think I do agree with, like, right now. To kind of agree on your point, that some of my characters that I have made, I felt were done. And I've given up on because I've reached the level of gear that I needed, and I kind of knew where the character was going.
Right.
And that's because they were only designed for mapping. Right now, I'm starting to design a lot of my characters for the next goal, which is beating all the endgame content. Because mapping is less important to me now, and leveling just through how the game has progressed. Now I'm more interested in just doing some of the hard content again.
Okay, so you're like getting a character for a proof of concept, and then you're exploring some of the harder content with that character. But
yeah, and if I know it can't do it, I'll make something else that can.
Okay, But you agree that you're doing it at a very accelerated rate compared to what you're used to, right? Because of the
Yes, yes,
accessibility.
yes.
Yeah, I guess
I worry about that for sure.
it comes down to, I guess, GGG, like mad people says no one knows why or if people are leaving the league, but I can tell you that GGG, they look at the numbers. They know the accounts that don't log on after a certain point. They can assume that that person's not coming back or he's done with the league. But I guess they know that there are more types of players that will make multiple characters a league before they leave. And I guess this is a benchmark of seeing if we bump up item acquisition, how long do people really stay? And if people get demoralized because these items are too expensive and it's not feasible, so therefore they're just going to cut the cord and leave quicker, or if they're going to stick around and be like, oh, it's not that far around the corner, I'm going to stick around and do this character. So this will be the league that will find the answer.
And it's definitely fun, like even for like a self-found player, right? Because it's like even if you don't want to trade, it's just like you feel like you're like, oh, I don't want to. I'm a self-found player and I refuse to trade for a Shavs. I really hope that player doesn't exist, but they might. And like I want to get a Shavs. They always in Brandis, you always feel like the unique you want is around the corner. And that is a surprisingly good feeling considering all the other things in the game, because it has these requirements that you have to meet. You have to have the coins for it. But then if you didn't have the coins for it, that self-found player, they could trade for coins. So I don't know. I think that's something that's like really great. It's definitely helped a lot of people. And I think there are a lot of people who may fall under that self-found category just because they don't want to deal with the hassle of trading. But that has also kind of gone away a little bit too. And to what you're saying earlier, how you were saying like you're worried that we're kind of the players might eventually are going to feel numb when the next league comes out,
right? Because
so many good things happen at the same time, subclasses, trade improvements, Brandis League. That's a lot.
Enchants, I mean,
yeah.
And new items. More often than not, before, like items and just skills and items. New uniques was enough content to keep us going. Usually, that was coming out at a very fast rate. Now we're getting a lot, like a mouthful, and I feel, I don't know. I'm just kind of worried that down the road people aren't going to feel the same way about the game because what we had, today or what we'll have tomorrow. I don't know. Chris has mentioned that the reason why they don't give us a self-found currency league is because they're thinking about the gamer psychology, of being numb to currency and crafting. They want it to be something special, something you have to work hard to get. And if they give us a league where just Chaos Orb is dropping off of every other mob, exalts are dropping like crazy. Then these moments that we have in the game where we make YouTube videos of like, just like that just doesn't happen anymore. We just like, oh yeah, that's just a chaos. That's just an exalt. That's divine. Oh yeah, I've seen tens of thousands of them drop in. I got 30 of them last league. It's not special anymore. So that's the main reason why Chris didn't implement a self-found crafting league, whereas it was heavily accelerated with currency. And that's kind of like, well, we have this, Perendis, where uniques are now the cheapest that they've ever been, like ever. And I do worry about how players will feel about this game. Not right now, because I'm sure everybody's having a great time, but maybe 8 months down the road, or even the next league, if they will be upset. They're like, well, Shaz was 2 exalt last league, now it's 10. This is bullshit.
Okay.
And that's my concern too.
I don't think they should go back from this. I don't. From all the build enabling uniques, I really hope they don't go back. I think it's for the better of the game, the same way I thought about 5 links and 6 links. But what really needs to happen, in my opinion, is just we need to have like the next like extension where we bring the rares up to be the best again. Because they were for a long time a lot better in comparison to a lot of the uniques.
Yeah. Well, and I'm seeing a lot of people in chat, and I want to acknowledge this real quick. When you hear streamers talk about this, like I said, this is why I said no one's saying that we're not having fun playing this. And I don't think anybody's even saying that this should not be the case. What we're worried about, and overall, is that this is going to hurt people in the long run and kill the game. Not kill the game. That's really drastic, right? But it's going to hurt the game, which will eventually hurt our experience more. So when people talk about this, it's not so like someone said like, oh well, how could you bounce? Like, why do you think they should bounce the game around the top 50? I'm not a top 50 player.
Me neither.
I'm not a top 50 player. I don't care. I like to play the game the way I do. Like it. I'm not a top 0.1%. I'm not a top 1%. I get through this game pretty well just playing. And so, you know, when we have these conversations, it's literally just for discussion. I don't like Hege's not saying any of this in a way that is like he thinks that, you know, if you just got your shavs for 2 exalts, well, fuck off. That's dumb because it should be at least 5 exalts. It's just the discussion needs to happen because GGG is having the same discussion too. Like if you think that GGG is sitting there and just saying we're going to do this and they're not talking about the implications, you're wrong. They're talking about the same exact things, and it's good for them to see how the community reacts to it. So I do not tout myself as someone who is a top 50 player, and if you think of me like that, awesome, I guess. I don't know. Same thing with Hege. I mean, I think Hege is a better player than me because of his consistency, and I think that a lot of it comes down to consistency. But the discussion needs to happen. You know, that
it doesn't matter who's a better player.
Yeah,
I don't think it's anything like that. It's just what we want is the game to succeed long term. We don't want these consequences of some decisions to destroy someone's passion for the game. And we're only making observations based off of our own experience. Like the whole unique thing. How do I feel about uniques before in the leagues, you know, where I was able to sell them for a lot versus when I find them now? How do I feel about them? It's just me taking notes of like, oh, this has changed. I don't feel the same way as I used to feel about this. And that we're just pointing that out. And, you know, GGG can stir this game however they want. They have the database. They know when people are leaving. We're just talking about it as 3 players of a wide, you know, very big community. So these are the opinions of 3 people that have been playing this game very consistently and are in, like, they want the best for the game, you know, long term. I don't think any of us are having a horrible time in this league. I mean, I'm having a blast.
The best time.
Yeah, I love it.
Nugi's having a blast, but we're just talking about the what ifs, you know, down the road. Is it still going to be the same game? Are we going to still feel the same way? You know, these are all concerns that I think are pretty legitimate, and I know that they're talking about it too.
Yeah, and also, like, on top of that, and this is probably the last thing I'll say for a little bit because I don't mean to do this, but developers are not top tier players either.
Yeah.
They're not top tier players. And this is not trash on them anyway. I've worked at a developer, and you know what? The players are way better than the developers. Oh, and they always will be. So again, this conversation is just good to have. We all love what's going on. They're concerned with it though.
Yeah. And I know there are other streamers that are concerned with the same thing. I mean, it's just a forum where we can talk about, you know, how the game was and how it is today. And I think it's important because it's starting to appeal to a different audience and it's expanding its, you know, audience. I feel it's a good choice financially, definitely. And the majority of players are very happy with this. So I can't say that it was the wrong decision. I can just say that I don't feel the same way about the game as I did 2 years ago. You know, it's definitely different. Is that bad or is it good? I don't know yet. We'll see.
It's all about growth. So
yeah, and Chris has stated that this is their best launch. You know, they've seen records broken by, you know, huge margins. So maybe they are making the right call, and maybe the people that, you know, really want the game super hard, they're just going to fall less in love with the game, and newer players are going to fall in love with the game. Maybe that's the case. Who knows?
I do think it's important to have however more accessible they're making everything. It is important having something that's unachievable by the masses. It really is. Mm-hmm. When you look at all successful games, well, you can take World of Warcraft for example. How many people actually go to the top tier rating, to the mythic rating or whatever it's called right now? It's like a percentile maybe that gets to that point, but it's still some of the most talked about. It's still what everyone kind of aspires to do. Mm-hmm. So you need to have that in games, and the same thing with PoE. They always have to be that next step you can take. And whenever when you remove that, then that's definitely a big problem.
Mm-hmm. I love that you say that, because something can be at the most competitive level and be a great spectator sport, or something that is great for marketing, that you can just look at these players and you're just like, damn, that's like some next level shit. And then you can still enjoy the game at all different tiers. You can set your own goals, and that's what this game has achieved. And
it's doing that better. It's doing that a lot better than it was.
I just feel like it's getting weaker for the top percent. And even though I'm not a participant of that, I'm still somebody who keeps up with the news and the race. And I would like to see. I think they could do a few things that won't affect 99.9999% of the community, but give us a more exciting race to 100. I would like to see Havoc sweat. Not just coast mode, GG 100, did it again. Nobody behind me. But yeah, I mean, we all have that same common interest. That's good. I know a lot of Chad has been writing. They're like, what are these guys talking about? Shut up.
Well, yeah. Well, I don't know. I'm kind of lost right now. I'm not even gonna lie to you guys. That was kind of like I feel like it was a long tangent.
Yeah. It was good though.
There's something else I wanted to ask about, but I completely forgot. Let's see. Well, I think we've been going for a little while now. It's probably about time we'd end. You want to do a little bit of Q&A?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Is you okay with that, Nugi? You're gonna look like a jerk if you say no, obviously, so you can't say no. All right. Well, if you guys have any questions for us, go ahead and for us, anybody, go ahead and post it in chat, and we'll read them. And yeah, while we're doing that, while people are putting in their questions, someone in the chat, Alork19, said, "Can we talk about master rotations?" I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of like indifferent about that. I don't participate in them, so I don't know if that's like an aspect of the game that.
Well, why don't you participate in it? That might be useful information.
Yeah, I hardly level my masters. So I don't really care about masters, so that's why.
So you don't value the enchants or whatever. You just
if I need an enchant, I could get one.
You get it from somebody else, right? You're like, your time is better spent somewhere else. Yeah. But as far as master rotations for me, I kind of like it. It has its own set of rules, and it's got its own culture. People are very, very kind from what I've noticed. They're like, wait, don't start it. Make sure you know what you're doing. But it gets really heated too, so that's good. That's good. People are like start cursing at each other if the Varici mission goes south. It's kind of funny, and I like the dynamic. I like that there's like an etiquette to that whole thing, and there's a certain way people do it, and it's
like special. A sub community. It's like a little mini community.
It's like an activity you do with the community. It kind of like forces you out there, and I like it.
Nugi, do you have any thoughts on that?
On masters, I think masters and maps are terrible. I think the master rotation stuff seems pretty cool. I think some of the masters needs like a huge rework in maps. It makes no sense that you find Varici at the end of a gorge, and then you have to run back to the start, and then you have to run back to Varici. Like stuff like that just bothers me.
Or have you
Yeah,
find
to where when in maps, I think they're horribly done. Some of them.
Yeah, that
I
is
think
true.
the challenges are it seems fine. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's cool that we have people like going for masters and having that as their like they set up their shop, they set up their master shop. I think that's great. And then we have people like you have this kind of niche community, and then whenever you need something done, you go there, and then you can decide to okay, I have this enchant I'm doing like I always wanna be able to do on my own because I do it all the time. So I'm gonna level that guy. And I think that's nice. Like you decide how much effort you want to put into it and what you want to get out of it. And
Yeah.
I think that's really good.
Something that I would like to mention is they added the portal at the end of the labyrinth. You know, the little trials. It's like, why couldn't they do that with masters? You know, you do a Torah mission, you get a portal back to the entrance or back to the master. Something like that would be huge quality of life, and maybe people wouldn't hate it as much.
Yeah, they do it with the side zones, with the Val side zones, which was amazing.
Yeah, they do with it. Yeah, so that could just be one thing that they could do. But a lot of the things that we have to consider is a lot of people don't watch Twitch or they don't watch streams, and they don't play in a guild or they just play solo. But they do these master rotations. That's an opportunity to check out someone else's build. They're like, oh, that guy looks like he's doing something interesting, and people talk to each other like, what build are you running? Oh, can you lead me into the right direction where I can find more information? And that's happened to me. People ask, what build are you doing? But I think that's a good avenue to kind of like force some community integration. Interaction, expose yourself to something other than your own world. So
I hope we are going to have more things that would kind of encourage players to come together and play together.
Right.
In general, to where we just gather at one zone, right? It's great when people gather in other people's hideouts, but it's not that great that we're not like we don't have. I've been talking so much about like having a hub, right? Nobody gathers in Act 3 or Act 4 anymore like we did back in the day. So nobody like looks at each other. Like nobody has nobody shows or people do because like you do it in these master missions and when you go to the public board, but. I would love for more like sub communities within the community. That would be nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's see. So, Tover Cole asked, "Do you think Azaro being tied to the ascendancy classes is wait?" He didn't actually ask a question. Oh wait, should it? He's just asking if it should have been optional. Like, should Azaro have been optional to get your ascendancy subclass? So
no, I don't feel like it should. I mean, one challenge is getting through the traps and figuring out the puzzles. The other challenge is dealing with a boss with all different kinds of abilities and certain variables that you need to like really pay attention to in order to overcome the challenge. And I think it's a great way to reward a character with more power. Very, very rough, encounter. You have to, pre-plan something to set yourself up for success. If it was a joke or if it was easy, then it would have less meaning. Yeah. And I think the power awarded is definitely worth the trouble that it takes to do it.
I think we can talk about whether or not some of the tediousness, like doing the non-lab trials, right? The 6 ones in every single difficulty on every single character, and kind of maybe the length of the lab in some of the earlier difficulties. That could definitely be adjusted. I definitely think you should go through the lab, and you should kill Izaro to get it. Because the question is, okay, if you don't like the lab, okay, but if you don't like Malachi, should Malachi have been like optional to go to what's it called, to progress through difficulties?
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that we have.
I think it's important having stuff that you're obliged to do or that you're required to do to get certain things.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Malachi, you don't get anything. You just get to go to the next act.
Yeah, you get to the next act. That's it. If you don't like it, well, then you can't progress. Tough job.
All right. Next question is from Suit Size Small. says, is there any ascendancy subclass that you guys think should be improved, or they're on a good spot? So I'm going to change this a little bit to make it an easier question. Is there any ascendancy subclass that you really want to play that you just feel like there's not enough for it, or it's too far out of the meta, or whatever? You know what I'm saying? Is there any subclass that, like, I actually think Slayer's a really cool one, but I think it's kind of boring because it's just giving me melee splash.
I think the cool part about Slayer is the Leech.
Yeah.
But Leech right now is not worth building for. I think Leech was like horribly like dismantled. So it's like not so you either just go Warlord's Mark, you get the one node in Duelist, or you get Vault Pact. That's kind of like what you do now. Leech itself is just building around Leech as a extension of your character seems pointless in most cases. So I think it's more about that, how bad the mechanic of Leech is. The same with like Bleed. All the Bleed, except for the one that makes them explode, which has some very high uses. I hear that's apparently very good. But the Bleed itself is kind of terrible. Like everything surrounding Bleed. So I think Leech comes in the same, like mechanically it's just not very good. And the same thing comes to like putting effort into making Leech better. I think it's kind of it's kind of in the same problem area.
You, Hege, anything?
I mean, I'm kind of cheating because I've been going back through old characters and just ascending them and playing them. I feel like they're all pretty great, with the exception of maybe Slayer. Slayer could have a little bit more going for it. I mean, it's got really poor representation, and for face value, it is what it is. So I guess it is a bit underwhelming. I really like the AoE though. Maybe they can make the Leech less sucky by removing the cannot Leech mod in the map.
Yeah. You know, actually, something that I actually dislike about all the Leech, all the Leech passives on the tree, and just even Leech in regards to Slayer, is its interaction with Valpact. Because Valpact is really good, right? It gives you that instant Leech, but so many nodes on the tree actually make it to where you get a benefit while you're leeching, and you're not leeching when it's instant. You don't get that buff. So it's just like if you think about making a Leech build, you wouldn't be taking Valpact. But Valpact is kind of like the best thing for Leech, if that makes sense. I don't know.
I don't necessarily agree on that.
It's got a heavy downside.
Yeah.
Can't regen.
Right. But that's just what I'm saying. Like, we have Valpact, which is, in a pretty good spot on the tree now, I feel. Maybe it could be moved a little bit, but then we have all these Leech nodes that you'd imagine would synergize well with Valpact, but they don't. Not so much.
I don't think Leech nodes necessarily should synergize with Vault Pact. I think one of the issues is that it's so hard pushing the Leech cap, like the Leech rate, high enough to where it's good enough. Because if you could push to the point where if you invested a certain amount of points into Leech and you could get, like right now it's 20% per second. If you could push it to 100% with going, say, Slayer, and so you went Slayer and you went a lot of the Leech nodes on the tree, and now you could actually achieve like 100% per second. Like now it's at a point where you can actually get enough Leech to where you can use Leech as an actual mitigation type. But you can't really do that now because you can never get the Leech rate to become high enough to kind of like the investment versus what you could do otherwise is just not worth it, and so nobody's going to do it.
Right. Well, and about that, like Valpact originally was, and I apologize for my ignorance if this is the case, but Valpact was originally a anti-reflect defense mechanism more often than not, right? And now that's reflected the same way. Well, it still is, but reflect is not as problematic as it was before. So I don't know. Maybe that's a non-topic.
Maybe if they had a way to make leech give you like your overleech had some more meaning, maybe some passive mitt or some extra shield or some way to really reward people that are leeching hard as some kind of like I don't know ES cushion. I don't know what the answer would be, but so it doesn't feel like it's wasted when you're always topped off. So I think that's maybe what they need to do to make leech more appealing and leech rate and things like that. You can like overextend and make your HP go up. As long as the leech is going, you have a slightly higher health pool or something temporarily.
Yeah.
I don't know. Some
make it's making the mechanics more attractive.
Yeah. Interesting. And not feel wasted.
So Skizman asked, would it be valid for GGG to revert changes made in earlier updates? For example, revive the Dark Forest Zone in Act 2, or rebuffing bosses to their pre-nerf state, or even review the previous difficulties like Ruthless. What are your thoughts? This is all three of us. Quickly, I think this extends to a lot of things, because I think this is one thing that I feel like GGG should be a little bit more transparent about and be open about. Like for example, the change to nerfs to uniques when the mechanic gets nerfed later, like Cloak of Defiance, right? Like I think it would be fair if they revisited some of their changes, things that weren't very popular at the time. I would love to be able to go to Catacombs and get a golden chest, because that doesn't. Was it just called a large chest before?
Yeah,
you could go
chest,
in there, even though it didn't usually amount to much, it doesn't seem like. I think it just adds more flavor to the game rather than hurting it. So,
because what was his question again exactly?
Well, the question was just like, do you think GG should go back and revert changes they've made earlier in like previous updates?
Okay,
I think it's so unfair that a certain thing comes out and it was balanced around a certain meta, and then it just never gets adjusted after that. I mean, Scolds, not many people know, but it was balanced from the old Arctic armor. Bringer of Rain, that was balanced around the old block that you were able to get. That's no longer the case anymore. Thunderfist, no, not Thunderfist. Voidbringers, those were balanced off of the current, mana consumption, mana regen. When EB used to have a shitload of mana, and you
can actually run it.
Yeah, you could actually run it.
Yeah.
So things like that, like why don't those things get a revisit based off of new values that we have on, gems today? And I feel like that gets overlooked too much. And I am not opposed to them, nerfing uniques and
or just wanting to like change the meta. I think a lot of the time they just want to like shift how people play, just for the sake of shifting how people play.
But I do wonder. I wonder what they think. There's like, well, we'll just let it ride out this league and see how many people use it, or if they can use it. Let's see what people come up with. But Voidbringers, those haven't been touched, like ever. And old EB is very, very different. So, do these need, better power levels, or do certain items? Does Bringer of Rain need to be better? To compensate all the changes that
I think Bringer of Rain has gotten better this time around, just because of how it enables some of the block builds. Gladiator, for instance, Black Gladiator has been very, very popular, I think. Well, the certain Gladiator build, not Gladiator as a whole, but there's like the for what Gladiator does, it does like one build, which is the block. So like if 3% are playing Gladiator and then they're mainly all playing block, like because when you look at Champion, it's like 20 different builds, but Gladiator is like one, so it's actually a lot of people playing that specific archetype. So I think that kind of like comes into play just by like, for instance, like for this Ascendancy has already like made some of those builds or those items a lot better.
Well, this also goes the other way too, because Lightning Coil is an example of that. When it was introduced, it had a downside that seemed pretty massive.
It was terrible
because you could get shock stacked up to 3 times, but now that's changed. Now it's much better. So like the downside on it could probably be adjusted to be a little bit more substantial. But the revisiting of old updates or nerfs or buffs or whatever could definitely be it should be looked at a little bit more, because people get invested into like their uniques or what they're doing. If someone really loves running the example that I use, if somebody really loves running catacombs to get those large chests at the end, now it's gone. Is someone really loved using Cloak of Defiance in every single build, now it's not the case. So I think revisiting that stuff is definitely something that they should be a little bit more keen on doing. So
yeah, I mean, Rory did mention that they don't necessarily do face value, buffs or nerfs. That they are interested in changing stuff laterally through maybe items, enabling. I don't know, what does a Slayer specialize in? Two-handed AoE and leeching, maybe enabling or introducing a new unique that has a leech mechanic instead, and really like pushing balance that way. So, I mean, who knows what's in store? I want a unique that reverses increased duration into reduced duration. That's what I want to see. I hope that's coming out.
I think, well, with this entire conversation, one thing that it always trends towards my items, the uniques. So when I think also in the question with the revisit all content is some of the bosses. They've only, like, I've only seen, as for my experience, it seems like everything is getting nerfed and nerfed and nerfed in terms of some of the side bosses and the bosses you have to like encounter through the game, making them very uninteresting. Like, I ran into Callista or whatever, and I just ran straight to her, killed her, and then went on. I remember when she came out, like Dominus is apparently scared of Callista. Apparently Dominus took the elevator up to avoid her. So she should be a force to be reckoned with, but not so much anymore. And there's like so many of these like side bosses that you encounter while leveling that could be so much more interesting. I find it so disheartening that a Subfizz volatile devourer poses so much more danger than 95% of the side bosses.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it'd be nice if there were more of an event, like killing Fairgraves.
Yeah.
Like, if it was like, oh man. And then, because like the reward is good, right? Everyone loves the reward of killing Fairgraves. It's a passive point. But having a challenging encounter that is actually fun, I think accompanies that, or that complements that very, very well. So yeah, you're right.
I would really appreciate if they would like kind of make their content be more like make more of a, I don't know, effort to make it like an epic experience killing some of these guys, and where you maybe had to prepare a little bit for some of them,
like Azaro.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just like Azaro.
A lot of these side zones are side content. I remember it was very dangerous going down to the Deep Dweller if you didn't have perfect cold res. And I think that's how it should be. If you want to get this small buff, there has to be a danger to it. The same thing with Fairgraves. Man, going down. I remember when shock stacking was a thing back in the day, and you went down in the ship graveyard cave, and they flickered on you, and you got shocked, and then you died. That was crazy dangerous if you didn't have high lightning res early on.
Yeah, but if you did it, you got a skill point.
Exactly.
And on top of that, you could still run it without the lightning resist. It was just very dangerous.
Yeah, or you could just skip it and do it later.
Yeah.
Yeah, even the Hailrake fight at the very beginning, like you go in, and if you complete it, it's sketchy. You could easily die to that guy and his minions. And if you get it, you get a Quicksilver, and that's like a really big boost for the rest of the game. Yeah, I mean, it makes it more
important.
meaningful.
I think it's important for players not to run in and feel like they get just stomped on for no apparent reason. It's important to also communicate the danger of going to some of these zones better. Because I would rather have they communicate that a little bit better, and then they opt kind of the difficulty again. Because I really would like some of these places to be more dangerous and not just a walkover.
Yeah,
a
lot
of
that just. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say that it just, when you like think back to when you were leveling, it there are no moments where like it all feels the same until you get to like the end act bosses. You're just going through, like it's all the same. You're killing the flicker, the guys who flicker onto you in the sewers in Act 3, and it feels exactly the same as the Imperial Gardens. Like it just doesn't. Nothing really stands out to you in your leveling experience. So,
what I really like about the lab is that depending upon what character you're playing, what leveling experience, you make like a different judgment call. Should I go to do the lab now? Should I wait a couple levels? Should I finish normal and then do ledge or get my Dweller of the Deep skill point and then come back to it and it'll be much easier? Or do I get it early and hope that I don't die and I cruise through the beginning of Cruel and onwards? I really like that. Sometimes when your character is a powerful leveling character, you can do it early, and then if it's like not fully developed and you're really struggling, that you decide to do it later. Those are like very unique game decisions that a player has to make, and I think that's a great thing, and we need a little bit more of that in the game.
I like the amount of focus that you use on the lab when you're doing the lab, as I find myself like really engaged with the lab when I'm actually running it, and it's I don't even get like that in maps generally. like it's something that I really focus on, so I enjoy that.
But another thing to be so appreciative of is that you don't have to do it straight. You can AFK right before the Asiro fight, 3 times at 3 different checkpoints. You could just AFK next to the stash, and that is an absolute necessity, because if you don't have that, that means you're gonna have to plan maybe up to 40 minutes of I cannot leave the computer, otherwise I could die. So I think they were thinking of that, and those zones are so amazing. You can go up, take a piss, you can go have a burger, come back, and still do it, and don't lose your progress. I mean, that's very, very important. It might seem subtle. You're like, why do I have to make this L?
Good point.
Why don't they just give me a stash in the hallway?
No.
But very, very good.
All right. Well, I think that's going to conclude it for us, guys. Nugi, thank you very much for coming on. Is there anything you want to say before the end?
No, just thanks for a good conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Even though we're not top 50 players.
You're top 50 in my heart.
Oh, thanks. All right. Where could people find you?
You can find me on twitch.tv/Nugiyen, where I stream every day.
Awesome. And Hege, how about yourself? Thank you for coming on again.
No problem. You can find me on Twitch TV/Gemini TV, or any one of my YouTube videos that can be found on youtube.com/Gemini PoE. I do a lot of PoE content. I've been playing for 3 years, going strong, and I'm planning on playing this game for a long time.
Awesome. All right. Well, again, thank you guys very much. I really appreciate it. You could check me out on my YouTube, youtube.com/waba.tv. I almost spaced out on that. So yeah, I don't even know why I'm saying this. This is a YouTube recording that's going on right now. So you guys are already on my YouTube channel. Thank you for all the people who are here in chat. I appreciate it. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now. Thanks, guys. Have a good one. Bye-bye.